Shwmae a chroeso I Sgwrs, podlediad Consortiwm Canolbarth y De. Yn y podlediad hwn byddwch chi'n clywed y trafodaethau diweddara am bob math o bethau addysg. Hello and welcome to Sgwrs, the Central South Consortium podcast. In this podcast we'll bring you the very latest discussions on all things education.
Welcome to our Post-16 podcast on utilising the VESPA Growth Mindset online platform to support learner transition and progression. I'm Emma Lloyd, Associate Advisor of Post-16 Education, and I'll be hosting today's session. It's great to welcome colleagues from Fitzalan High School and Tonyrefail Community School. And I'm going to hand straight over to Marie and Kate and then on to Sophie to introduce themselves. Welcome both.
Hi, so I'm Marie Downing, and I'm Deputy Head of the Humanities Faculty here in Tonyrefail, and I teach social sciences. So we have psychology, sociology and criminology that we offer here, and along with Katie, we teach all three of those. So we are only sixth form teachers here. That's all we do, and we're a 3 to 19 and all through school in an area of deprivation. It's one of the reasons we'll get to later as to why this project was so important to us, really. Our sixth form is quite a large one, and there was definitely a lot of need. Katie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Katie Cooper, and Marie and I have been working on this together, the inquiry project, and introducing VESPA to the school, really. So I teach social sciences here along with Marie, and it's been a really enjoyable process for us, collaborating on this VESPA inquiry programme.
That's a great introduction, thank you, lovely. And Sophie?
Hi, I'm Sophie Greenaway. I'm Head of Sixth Form at Fitzalan High School in Cardiff. We're a large and inclusive sixth form, and we've done a lot of work over recent years in our teaching and learning and our subject content. And we've got such high aspirations for our pupils and the families for the pupils as well. We really wanted to develop that wider area, and the VESPA mindset just fitted perfectly to something we were looking to implement, particularly post-COVID.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so Marie and Kate, which aspect of the growth mindset model did you focus on and why, please?
For us, it was important to focus on, to be honest, the whole thing, all of the aspects. We spent a lot of time with the whole cohort on all 5 aspects, but with our inquiry group, we focused on vision specifically. For us, it was really important. I mean, pre-COVID, our students lacked confidence and they lacked resilience, and aspirations were low anyway. And that was a situation that existed in the school before COVID even existed. And then, of course, COVID hit, and all that has happened is that's gotten considerably worse since then. So the whole situation's been exacerbated by COVID. We've had a lot of motivations been lost, huge amounts of disengagement. They have essentially lost the craft of being a student. They don't know how to be students anymore. They don't know what their role is, and it's been a real struggle, and it's been very, very noticeable post COVID. So we wanted VESPA to be something that we could use to help us to try to regain that motivation in the students, to re-engage them and give them confidence that they know how to be a student again, what is expected of them, what is their role in all of this, and ultimately we want them to be resilient and confident and be able to stand on their own. So it was important to us that we focused on the whole of VESPA with the whole cohort, and we'll talk a little bit more later, I guess, about exactly how we did that. But with the inquiry project, our focus was vision, because we just felt that kind of underpinned everything else. If they knew what they were here for and why, then it makes it easier for us to be able to follow through with the other components of VESPA. So that's where we started from, I suppose.
Excellent. And how were those students selected? So once you identified that vision was an area you'd like to focus on, how did you select the students within that focus group?
Well, we did the VESPA questionnaire to start with. So we've done that one twice now. We've seen that through twice. So in the answers to the questionnaire, we could identify who was low in vision. And we also had our Progress Snapshot 1 data, and so we could check that against Progress Snapshot 1 and see who's underperforming, and from that we were able to identify a group of students who could be used in the inquiry. And both Katie and I are form tutors in the sixth form, and so we just for ease then selected out those that were in our own forms, because then we had easy access to them on a regular basis to be able to undertake some of the interventions that we had.
That's great. It's a really clever way to do that, actually, because that contact is vital, isn't it, to be able to engage with those students on a regular basis and keep track. So really, really smart planning there. Great. And over to you, Sophie, in terms of which aspect of VESPA that you focused on and why, and how you identified your focus group for this inquiry project.
So really the context of our school came into that a lot. We've got high levels of social deprivation in our catchment, and through lockdown we really had huge issues with well-being, still that high vision of the pupils really wanting to achieve, but that almost the practice of being a student where they weren't actually in school. Lots of those activities that we would normally do as a pastoral team, group one-to-one support, mentoring, that type of thing, obviously it was all online. It just wasn't and didn't have the same impact. So when we looked at all 5 areas of the VESPA project, but we actually chose the practice, and that was because we felt that the vision was there, and then when we were looking at the pupils' results, it wasn't necessarily subject content they were missing, it was that organisation, that how to revise, that actual structure support of being a successful Key Stage 5 student. So the practice fitted in so well. It was also beneficial because I could use any of my pastoral tutors, I could use my pupil performance achievement leaders, and they didn't have to have that subject specialism knowledge. For example, they didn't have to be a chemistry A-level teacher, whereas they could sit and support the pupils with those practice activities, develop those general skills, and then we could see a real impact in their actual subject performance as a result. So they were just both inextricably linked. So the practice works so well for our learners across the whole of the cohort, not just the project group.
That's really interesting, isn't it? And how did you go about then selecting your focus group, and what students did you end up focusing on?
So we looked at the scores at a whole year group level, and then also at a form group level. I do a lot of work with ALPS, the data company ALPS, and we run mentoring and monitoring in interim data analysis every half term. And I was looking at our lowest score was practice across the whole of the cohort, but in particular, some of my top end pupils, my form groups are set into as wherever possible in subjects. So my maths A level groups, for example, I've got over 71 now on maths AS level. That form group, in terms of their performance against their minimum expected grade on ALPS, they were the ones underperforming against their MEG, and they were also the ones with the lowest practice score. So we really wanted to make those a focus group to try and obviously make them achieve their expected grade, and it seemed to be practice, the area that they were all scoring the lowest at as well. So we linked that with the ALPS data and also the VESPA mindset, which worked brilliantly for us as a school and for the pupils to make sure we targeted the right class.
Again, really interesting and great to link it with the data and the outcomes, to have a joined up approach across their provision for sort of academic and wellbeing provision then being covered in both, isn't it? Great. If I come back to Marie and Kate then, you've said you've obviously got your focus group now. Tell us a little bit about that focus group and what interventions you've been able to put in place.
So in terms of the interventions that we've been able to introduce to support learners here, the VESPA programme has actually allowed us to introduce quite a number of things. So the first thing that we started with was introducing VESPA as a concept, and this has been quite an organic process because this is the first time Marie and I have actually worked with this programme, obviously. So we started with staff, so we started to train staff in terms of what VESPA was. And it was vital that we had, because of our intention to run it through a pastoral system with the form tutors, it was vital we had those form tutors on board, vital we had their backing. So we spent quite some time doing this through inset and things like this. Once we had the form tutors on board, then the interventions we could put into place and how we could use those registration periods became really evident. So in order to get the VESPA message out there, we sort of allowed them to have every week a VESPA focus. So it gave them the opportunity there to actually access the VESPA concept, even though they weren't actually part of the inquiry project. So that was a really, really good intervention that we found that is working. And when we look at the data later to see how improvements have been made, that whole approach has actually given them a lot of opportunity to improve in the 5 VESPA concepts. The other intervention that we looked at, obviously, was the inquiry project, as Maria said. And basically, we worked very closely with 6 students each. The intervention there was based upon vision, as Maria said. And we were trying to sort of twiddle our thumbs about how we could run this. So we sort of approached it with a sort of scheme of learning approach, and we created a sort of vision workbook, if you like, which was a sort of optional thing that we wanted them to complete. We didn't want it to be task heavy. So it was something, it was more like guidance that we would do, but it gave us a chance as well to sort of work on practicing the coaching element, if you like, of VESPA, as well as going over the activities.
We also had the assemblies. So one of the other things that we did once a fortnight, we had a VESPA assembly with a specific VESPA focus, and the VESPA assembly would then lead into the activities that they'd be doing in form time with their tutors each week. And that was a way of us being able to manage the message that was going out about VESPA, so that they were all getting the same information, because that was a slight worry, is that different form tutors would be introducing it in different ways, and we just wanted to make sure that there was a common focus and a common message and a common language that was being used, I suppose.
I think as well, once we got to that stage with the assemblies and the message was there, especially from senior leadership team, it also allowed us to use that sort of VESPA terminology in the classroom within the department. So we started bringing things in, such as, looking at effort within our department only. And it was really useful, actually, when Maria and I conducted those the sort of personal interviews, that where they thought they were in terms of effort was nowhere near where they actually were. Yeah. So those interventions were very beneficial for us.
Fantastic. And you've said that you've created a workbook to complement the work that you're doing. Did you also use the online platform for the activity?
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. So every student in Year 12 had access to the online platform, and they found that quite engaging. They loved the fact it was quite personalised. But it's just for the focus group. We thought that they needed something more targeted. Something very specific for them, in terms of their vision only. So it was just something to offer that additional support and guidance for them.
Brilliant, absolutely great. Thank you. There's a lot of interventions going on, and I like the holistic approach with the staff training, really getting the message and the ethos very strong within your school community. Really, really great. And Sophie, some of your interventions, if you don't mind sharing for the practice element, would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, so we obviously chose one form class for the inquiry project, the data group. However, we rolled out the interventions across all of Year 12 because we could see the benefits of them. So we introduced the VESPA project to all of Year 12, firstly in an assembly, went through what it was, showed them some clips of activities and the resources. And I think the presentations are so current and modern, even just with the imagery they use on the screen. That got the pupils' engagement straight. They were fed up with listening to me, and they could see some of these activities, which was great. We then did training with the pastoral team, because we have an hourly pastoral session every Monday, so we're using that as our key focus time to introduce this across the whole cohort. We trained those. Then those lessons then were, I think it was every Monday, I was either set an activity for the whole of them to do, so it was a targeted one on practice, for example, or we would let the pupils choose areas that they felt that week that they might have been, that they needed some support with. And again, we linked that to the interim data. So if they had an A for effort in 3 subjects and then a C in 1 in that latest tracking data, then they might have looked at an effort activity as well. So even though the main focus was practice, we dipped in and out where needed. We've also this year, for the first time, had lessons introduced entitled My Futures. where we look at careers, we look at PSHE activities, and also develop those wider skills that enable them to be successful sixth form pupils. So this was fantastic. It coincided perfectly with this first year where we had a totally organic curriculum. We were just trying to plan these lessons on the needs of the pupils, but this platform actually enabled me to staff that were teaching that ensure that there was consistency across those lessons, and they were all having this value-added approach of using the platform and the resources on there. So it had a two-pronged approach there, which was brilliant. We then use it in our mentoring. So we have a one-to-one mentoring program as well with the pupils within that target group and across the year group. We do mentoring with the Key Stage 5 team, but also in certain cases, heads of department will mentor and members of the senior management team. So it's lovely for me to be able to print off the paper copies of the VESPA activities, to staple it to their traditional mentoring sheet, so they could have their mentoring, but then also actually do some physical almost improvement work with the pupil together and have those really quality discussions. So it wasn't just all data led, it was around an actual area of improvement for themselves, because sometimes we're very good at sharing the data, but that actual next step of improvements, it was so easy to use, and the pupils understood it, and the S&T found it beneficial. So yeah, I can't praise the platform enough in that respect as well. We also use the Unifrog platform a lot in Key Stage 5, so it was great for me to be able to download a VESPA activity or attach a picture of one of the paper ones and add it as an interaction on Unifrog, so then I could monitor who carried out the activity, run a report of who hasn't done the activities, and that was really easy then to email to staff. We also linked it to some of the revision tools and note-taking activities that tied in nicely. So I was able to utilise both platforms hand in hand again, which was fantastic for the pupils.
Wow, that's a lot of interventions going on, and your pupils must be really benefiting. That's lovely to hear. In terms of any feedback so far for the interventions that you've put in place, have you had any feedback directly from the students within the focus group of the benefits they've found, or what have you seen as a reflection of some of the interventions you've used so far? If I can give that to Marie and Kate, is that okay?
Yeah, we've asked a number of the form groups, as well as individuals who were part of the interventions as well. And a lot of the feedback is very, very positive. They like the platform, definitely, and they like that it's personalised to each of the students, that they're not all doing the same thing. So that was something that was really positive. I've got comments here that are saying things like it helps you to realise your career choices, the practice skills it gives you are effective. I like being informed of the different ways to revise, as everyone specialises in their own methods. And another one here says VESPA is a platform that can help a lot of people decide what they want to do. After sixth form, it can help you find where you are and what you need to do to improve. So there was a lot of those kind of comments that were coming through. They could genuinely see the benefit in it. I mean, some of the negatives, or the areas that they were saying, did ask them for constructive criticism when we were asking, yes. But they were saying things like, some of the activities they found a little bit stressful, and I think it's the activities where we were focusing on vision. The quote is that as the focus on the future felt too far ahead. So I think that many of them, for us anyway, they really enjoyed the activities on practice and systems and getting themselves organised and knowing how to revise those things. They felt safe, I suppose, but they also could see the genuine benefit. Whereas because we had a focus on vision, I think some of the vision stuff they found a bit scary. Because it is asking them to think a little bit further ahead and work out what this is all for. And I guess that part of what we have to do going forward is looking at how we manage that, so that it's a positive process for them. And generally it has been positive, I think. Yeah,
definitely. And it was really pleasing to see with Cycle 2, especially in my form group, how happy they were that they'd made progress. And for them to see their graphs and say, Miss, I've gone up by 4, and just reiterating to them, yes, because you've actually changed your mindset, and because you've actually engaged and you've worked with us. And they were really, really pleased. I was quite surprised actually about how enthusiastic they were about their scores in Cycle 2, but they loved it.
And just for those people that aren't so familiar with the platform, when you say cycle 2, that's the questionnaire 2, where they go back and compare their results from before they started any of the interventions that you've put in place, isn't it?
Yeah. So from the first questionnaire to the second.
And did you find that just their vision score improved, or did we see across the board, for both of those focus groups?
Oh, so for us, in terms of our focus group, we had our 12 students, and we found that our focus obviously being vision, that 7 of them actually made progress. So we had, out of the 7, 2 student A and B who made significant progress. So they went from a 3 to a 7 and a 2 to a 6. And they were very pleased with that. We found that 3 of our students' vision scores actually stayed the same, yet they did make advances in a few other areas of the VESPA concept, so that was positive. 2 of our students actually dropped by 1. So both of them went from a 3 to a 2, yet both of these students in their feedback actually told us that they felt a little more confused now, because we'd made them think about so many more options than they initially thought of in the beginning, that now they realised actually that they need to start thinking about where they're going.
Yeah.
So
one of them had a very clear vision about what he wanted to do in the future, but his grades did not match. So his aspirations were very high, wanted to go on to be an architect, but his current grades were D's and E's. And having those kind of conversations where are equally important. So his vision score, I think, has gone down, and that's because he's perhaps realised that what he had originally thought he was going to be able to do perhaps wasn't something he needed to rethink. That's the thing. So I think it was definitely easy to explain why at least those 2 didn't go up, but on the whole
we saw significant progress.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, when we looked actually at the year 12 groups as a whole, we actually found that from 8 of our form classes, 5 of those increased their average vision scores. And overall, 6 out of 8 classes improved their overall VESPA scores as well, and that's whole classes, so that is significant progress for us. We also noticed that in terms of the 5 VESPA concepts, when we actually looked at them, we'd gone from vision in particular from a 4.61 up to almost 5. So collectively, that is significant progress, as I said. One thing that we were quite surprised at in terms of our vision, because we did have a big drive on this for whole school, for whole of year 12 as well, is that the distribution of their vision shifted significantly. So whereas they had quite a positive skew on the distribution initially, and most of it was centering around 2 to 5. In terms of their score, and we noticed that distribution actually spread considerably after the intervention, with far more scoring 7 and above.
So it's having, even with just a short-term project that we've taken part in, that is having a significant impact, isn't it, on your learners? And
absolutely, yes.
Which is fantastic to hear. Really, really pleased. And coming back to Sophie then, in terms of interventions and the impact or benefits that's had for your learners so far in the short term, really, isn't it?
Yeah, we've just carried out a Key Stage 5 learning journey, like a traditional pupil voice really, but trying to look in the new framework and getting the pupils to sit down and talk through their books and their learning. And it was lovely to hear for the first time pupils mentioning pastoral, so as they wouldn't really class that as a subject lesson. So I was so pleased that they mentioned it. Really positive about the activities they've been doing in pastoral, which were the VESPA activities. The pupils' comments made such as they felt really supported. They felt like we were looking into personalised solutions to issues they were facing. One of our assistant head teachers, a member of SMT, quoted that the mentoring questions, so when you've got the areas for improvement, and then obviously it provides questions linked to those, and the mentoring questions linked to areas of development enabled assertive mentoring and high quality conversations, and that really supported pupils and staff really to guide those conversations. So it's just not a chat and a check-in, which we do at other times, but when it was the mentoring around the project, it was really focused, which they all appreciated.
Sounds great, because it is, I think with the sixth form support, quite often we have those nice conversations and then they leave out and you think, oh, did they have an action? Did they have something they were really going to come back with? So hopefully that has given that structure to that, which is wonderful to hear. And so if I go back to Marie and Kate, we're coming towards the end of the podcast, but just to talk about really the future and the VESPA platform and what the interventions you've put in place now, and what happens for the future. How has it influenced your future planning or developments for your school in the future?
Yeah, definitely. This is something that for us is here to stay. We're really enthusiastic about it. It's absolutely what our students need. So our plan is to continue with what we've been doing. So the fortnightly assemblies with a VESPA focus will continue. It's going to be part and parcel of our tutorial programme for year 12 and year 13 going forward, and then the same with the VESPA form time. So once a week there is a form time where there's a VESPA focus. So we're going to carry that on. We are hoping with the interventions that we put in place, the actual booklet that we put together for the vision. The plan is in gain time in the summer is to look at creating something similar to that for all 5 VESPA components. So it gives just something else to the form tutors to be able to use. And that's not, we certainly don't want it to be death by booklet. So it's not something that we want given out to everybody, but it's just something extra in their armory that the form tutor can use to help to inform discussions that they have when they're having interventions with members of their form groups. And we've also started to implement the idea of VESPA within the faculty. So we currently introduced it to the faculty a couple of months ago, and as a faculty we decided that we wanted to focus in on practice. And so we have we're currently doing a teaching and learning kind of action research project on practice, where each department within the faculty is taking a different revision strategy from the practice elements, and they're doing a kind of before and after. So they're getting students to do a piece of homework or an assessment, just reading their notes and doing the assessment, and then they're introducing them to one of the practice strategies, teaching them how to do it, using that in class for a little while, and then doing a second assessment, so that we can physically demonstrate to the students what proactive independent study really looks like and the difference it makes in their results. So we're a very large faculty, humanities, so across all of our subject areas we hit a significant number of the student body. So if we can demonstrate that to them, then hopefully they will start to make use of these strategies on a regular basis. So the plan is that through the faculties then we'll start to use more and more of the VESPA components as well. So we started with practice. Later on I think we're going to work with systems.
That sounds a really positive future plan, and I'd really like to come back to you if you don't mind in the future and see how that's gone and the benefit it has and impacts had for your students, and what your staff think in terms of it as a useful tool to support the students. So I'll definitely be coming back, and hopefully you can share some of this with us. Thank you. Great. And Sophie, same for you then. How does the future look for Fitzalan?
Yeah, apologies, I didn't mention on the last question about our scores. So just to say that we had 7 full form classes, just over 200 pupils take part in the VESPA, not necessarily the inquiry project, but overall the programme. And every single form class improved their score in all 5 areas, which I think is quite remarkable given the time. So due to that, we will most definitely be continuing with VESPA. Practice was actually the area that we potentially made the least progress, which is quite interesting. Systems went through the roof, so I suppose they're quite linked. So we'll definitely be following on next year. We've already started mapping out our pastoral curriculum time, which will be be a key focus. And then also on my future lessons, it will also form part of that curriculum. Next year, I'd like to roll it out across year 12 and year 13, obviously because the year 12 had the experience this year, and to roll it across, it'd be almost a little bit mean to take it away from them now. So yes, definitely here to stay at Fitzalan.
That's wonderful to hear, and as Central South Consortium, we'll do all we can to support that project and to follow your progress and hopefully the impact and benefit it's had on your learners through what's been probably the most difficult 2 or 3 years for them. So hopefully it's had that desired effect that they've put in place. Great. I'd like to say a huge thank you to both schools for joining me this afternoon. It's been so interesting to hear all your interventions. The students will have certainly benefited, and I hope your staff have found it very useful as well, and will in the future. Look forward to working with you both, and do appreciate the time and effort you've put into this inquiry project through very challenging times in education. So thank you everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your support.
Diolch am wrando ar y benod hon o Sgwrs. Cofiwch ein dilyn ar Twitter a Facebook, tanysgrifio ein sianel YouTube, ymuno yn cymunedau ar ein gwefan a darllen ein bwletin ysgolion wythnosol am y newyddion diweddaraf. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sgwrs. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our online communities via our website, and read our weekly school bulletin for the latest news. Hwyl am y tro. Bye for now.